Welcome back to Dominant Training. In our last class, we discussed how to perform square operation on numbers, how to find the square of different numbers using a very simple arithmetic method. Today, we'll be discussing about fractions. Fraction, you want to know what fraction is all about. Fraction means part of a whole, part of a whole, part of a total. For instance, in a family, we have a total whole. You have the father, the mother, and the children. They form a whole. Each of the children is part of the whole. They are fractional part of the whole. In a home, you have a complete house where you have the sitting room, you have the rooms, you have the kitchen, you have the convenience. Each of them form part of a total. They are fractional part of the house. For instance, you have a cake, a whole cake, and you decide to share your friend equally, two of you. You divide the cake into two. Then it means you have 1 out of 2 here, 1 out of 2 here. It becomes fraction. This is the fractional part of the whole, and this is the fractional part of the whole. Several things around you come together to make a whole of a thing. So each component that make up a whole of a thing is what we call the fractional part of that thing. Now we are going to discuss forms of fraction. As far as arithmetic is concerned, or mathematics, how many forms of fraction do we have? Or in how many ways can we write a fraction? You can write fraction in common form. When you write it, 1 over 2, 2 over 3, 5 over 6, you say you are writing fraction in common form. If you write fraction in decimal form, 0.5, 0.6, 1.25, this is called the decimal form of fraction. Decimal, and this is common form or vulgar form. Those are the two forms in which you can have our fraction number written. So we now go to types of fractions. We have 1, proper fraction, where the number above the line is smaller than the number below the line. The number above the line is called the numerator, and the number below the line is called denominator. When the number above the line is smaller than the number below the line, like here we have 2 up and we have 3 down, it means the 2 is smaller than the 3. We call this proper fraction. For instance, you have a cat and elephant. You have a small cat standing on a very big elephant. Then you say this is a proper action. It's a proper thing to do, that the one that has a lower weight or a lesser weight will be placed on the one that has a bigger weight. So it is proper. That is where we have the proper fraction. Then we talk of second one, the improper fraction. In this case, the number above the line is bigger. You have 2 over 1. You have 3 over 2. You have 6 over 5. In the case of our example, you now have the big elephant to be on top of the very small cat. The cat, the elephant. It is improper, carrying a very heavy object on a less heavy one. This is an example of improper fraction. Or you have your brother, let's say you and your brother living together. You are 2 years old, your brother is 10 years old. you decide to carry your brother on your head. It becomes an improper action. Then you are having improper fraction in that case. Then the next one and the last of them is the mixed fraction. Mixed fraction. In this case, you have both the combination of whole part and the fractional part. The proper fraction, this is common example and this is decimal example. For the improper fraction, the decimal example will be something like 2.1. You have 1.5. You have 3.75. All these are examples of improper fraction in decimal form. So the mixed fraction is where you have the whole part and the fractional part. You have the whole part and the fractional part. You have the whole part and the fractional part. 1/7. All these are examples of mixed fraction. Then the mixed fraction also, if you look at it in decimal form, it will look like the improper fraction because you are going to have the whole part and you are going to have the decimal part. You're going to have the whole part and you're going to have the decimal part. This is also an example of mixed fraction in decimal form. One thing we should notice is that in decimal form, for us to have a proper fraction, the number before the decimal must be less than 1. It must be 0. The number before the decimal will be 0. But for us to have mixed fraction or improper fraction, the number before the decimal point will be greater than 0. That's why you're having 2 point, 1 point, 3 point to show that the number before the decimal, the whole part is greater than 0. And that, so we have discussed meaning of fraction, meaning part of a whole, part of a total. We have also discussed forms of fraction. There are 2 forms of fraction: vulgar or common fraction. Vulgar or common fraction. Then the decimal fraction. We have discussed types of fraction: the proper fraction, where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. We have discussed the improper fraction, where the numerator is bigger than the denominator, the elephant on top of the cat. We have also discussed the mixed fraction because you can see several cats inside elephant. In this case, if the elephant is not too big, we say like you can see about 100 of cats inside elephant, and there will still remain some part. So if you say how many cats can you see in elephant, that is the whole part. The remaining will now be over the cat. That's what you see like 1/7. These are the. Then we discuss also the fraction, the mixed fraction, where you have the whole part and the fractional part. The whole part and the fractional part. So in a nutshell, that is what we have discussed today about fraction. The meaning of fraction, forms of fraction, and types of fraction.